very least that this Board of Education and the administration can do is to present it to the community and say, hey, here's what we can do. Here's what it's going to cost, and here's what it's going to take. This is the chart of the growing enrollment we've had here in the district dating back to 2008 up until current. One of the lines, our red line, is the enrollment including out of district, and the blue line is our in-district enrollment. And going back to 2008, we were in the high 1500s, low 1600s. As of right now, out of district, we're at 1924, almost 2,000 kids, and we're at 1844 for in-district kids. So the amount of growth we've had over the last 10 years plus is a lot. There's districts in the state of New Jersey that actually have declining enrollment for one reason or another, and we are one of those districts that are on the spike. Ultimately, you have the Time Magazine article, in addition to all the new things we're doing here in the schools. So it's really just creating this environment where people want to move, and we're seeing that on a regular basis. So growing enrollment, for the projections, we had a demographic study completed in October of 2017, and they projected 1,828 kids for the opening of this school year. Already, we've exceeded that. We're at 1844 right now, after just the demographic study being just done months earlier. In regards to potential units in town and expanding the opportunities for families to move in, right now on the slate, there's 72 units that have not yet started construction here in town in different locations that ultimately are going to bring more kids in. So forget about the fact that we've been growing as steady as we have in the past decade plus. It's still going to be happening. People are still going to be moving to this town for the schools, for the good community, being in the hub of the world with New York just half an hour, 40 minutes away. 2018-19 resource room and inclusion numbers. Ultimately, with everything we have here that includes it, this is what our schools look like right now. We have approximately 250 students at Roosevelt. Jeff has 305, Washington 350, middle school 410, and our high school is at 529. Again, with the out-of-district students, we're at 1924. Average current class size. This year, we tried to, without putting every single class, teacher, and student class size up, we tried our best to show you all tonight what that average class size is. So if you take a look, the 138 kids for the kindergarten group, that's what we currently have now. We have 6 sections or 6 teachers spread across our elementary schools with an average class size of 23. That might not seem bad, but because of the locations of where the schools are and without our neighborhood zones, some of those classes, one of those classes in the high 20s, and the other one's a little bit lower. So that's really an issue that we have. Now you see grade 1, the 118. We only have 5 sections, and we're at 24. And over time, historically, what we've seen is that those numbers, as families move in, they still increase. So we're not sold on the fact that we're going to have 118 kids in that class for the rest of their educational career. We know it's going to grow, and we're trying to do something proactive now to bring attention to it and address this issue proactively. You can see also, too, grade 4, we have as high as 155. The big thing that unless you actually see it, you know, the Board of Education and I did a walk through the schools the other day. Ms. Russo, Ms. Fonzo were nice enough to let us through the building. And right now at the middle school for grades 6, 7, and 8, 26 sections, or 26 classes, if you will, have 30 or more students right now at the middle school. We have 33 sections at the middle school right now between 25 and 29 kids. Now, listen, we've heard it, when I was growing up, I had 30 kids in the class. And you know what? That may be so, but that's not a best practice, and it's not helping our kids the way it should be. So we're bringing this issue to the town. We're saying, here's our issues. We're going to work towards a plan to resolve them. This year, just for ballpark, we went over the numbers in the middle here, the 250 to 305. 350, 410 to 529 in regards to the existing enrollment in our schools. And we also put on the left-hand column there, the one, beginning with 186, where these schools were at 11 years ago. The green percentage shows the increase of students that we've had in each building, as well as district-wide. It is a lot of kids. A lot of kids and little space. Some of the unsuitable situations that we feel need to get corrected because of lack of space, we're running into this. Occupational therapy and physical therapy, we have the majority of it housed at Washington, and because there's no classroom space, the kids are literally conducting some of these actions, if you will, in the hallway. That's not ideal. We have no space for these kids, their occupational therapy and physical therapy. Resource, English, the ELL students, basic skills instruction. If anybody has ever seen some of our resource rooms and ELL and basic skills rooms, they're really large. They're just a little larger than closets where you can fit in a teacher and a few kids. It's not ideal, but again, we have no place for these kids to learn along with our staff. Art and music. We have art on a cart and music. We go into the rooms. It's an issue. I loved when I was growing up, being able to go into an art room, be able to go to the instruction paper, know what raw materials were, going in. You have that sense of accomplishment and what you're going to do for that day. We don't have that right now. Our music, same thing. We don't have anywhere to house our instruments or our materials for our kids learning with the recorders starting in grade 3. It's always just pushed into the class that we have. And finally, world languages. Same deal. They're in those same small classes that we have, or they're being pushed in to the larger classrooms in the students' regular schedule. Special education population. There was really no way to best express the growing number of special education programs other than doing an average. Even this isn't as telling as it is if you go in and you see some of our children's needs. And really, I mean, you look at the average class size for inclusion, resource and self-contained. I mean, ultimately for our little ones in the K-5 self-contained, having that average class size of 9 is not ideal. Right now, what we have is remaining legally compliant with one of our resource, our self-contained rooms, where we actually have kids in grades 2 through 5 over a 4-year window in that same room. It's legal, but it is by far not a best practice. So ultimately, by getting the space, we now have that opportunity to at least have our children transition into that next age group. And then eventually get into that more least restrictive environment where they can transition into wherever their educational plan leads. In the bottom here, out-of-district special ed. Private schools right now, we have 20 students in private schools, out-of-district special education. We have 10 students at South Bergen Joint Commission, and we have 5 students at Bergen County Special Services. 35 students out of district right now. We're going to get into what those costs look like and how it would look like if we create a program where we can bring them back. It's not only going to help out the families and the kids, but it's also going to help out the district financially as well. So this year's budget, 18-19 budget, we're just over $38 million in the general operating fund. It's a deceiving number, though, because we transferred a good portion of that $38 million, or about $7 million or so, from the capital reserve to that operating budget because we had to prepare for the potential purchase of Queen of Peace High School or for the potential expansion of Roosevelt Elementary School, which we'll talk about. So that is not, the $38 million, we're actually really not functioning on that just for this year. We're actually at $31 million. Per pupil average cost. Pretty much what that is, you take your number of students, you divide it by how much money our general operating budget is, and you come up with the per pupil cost. So we're, as of 16-17 year, and the reason why we're using that is that's data that's available online right now, we were around 15 and change. There are approximately 675 districts in the state of New Jersey. And that's including charter schools, that's including your K-4s, your K-6, your regionals, your vocational school districts. Out of that approximately 675, North Arlington is the 12th least funded district in the state of New Jersey. 12th least funded. Now, it's not to say that, hey, we want more money. I think what we're doing right now with what we have is amazing. We have a free college program, the early college program set up. We're doing amazing things with our kids. With what we have as being the 12th least funded district in the state of New Jersey. Now, the average, to give you a ballpark, the average per pupil cost for a district to run is right around $20,000 plus. So it kind of shows you how we're behind financially and ultimately to give the kids what other districts are getting. And our adequacy gap per pupil is $883, and that's as of the fiscal year 17-18. And pretty much what that means is we're behind about that amount per pupil for the enrollment we have, and the enrollment continues to grow. We spoke about the out-of-district special education, and what we have, if you take a look at the private schools and the 20 students we have out, we're over $1.6 million. In regards to the students that are placed at the South Bergen Jointure, we're at 759,000, and at BCSS, at 5 kids, at 334,000, totaling the $2.7 million plus in out-of-district tuition for those 35 students, as well as transportation costs in excess of $700,000. Now, I'm not putting that number up there. We're not putting that number up there to say, hey, look, we're spending all this money to fund. Absolutely not. We're putting it out there to say, hey, we could be using that money here to keep our kids home in town, not putting them on a bus, half an hour, 45 minutes plus 2, half an hour, 45 minutes back, having the parents anxious, worried about their child coming back. And the bottom line is, who wants to sit on a bus for 40 minutes? I certainly don't each way. Why would anybody think a 5, 6, 7-year-old is going to want to do that? They don't. If we have the space here, that would allow us to start bringing some of our students back. The one area that we spoke about over the past few weeks is looking what program we want to bring back first. Most likely, we would work towards bringing back the ABA program for our autistic children who are at a younger age. Right now, for our specialized pre-K, when they transition out of that program, we have nowhere to put them. And ultimately, that then leads to out-of-district tuition, and we're losing our kids. So it would allow us to bring them back and then ultimately reduce costs down the line. So how do we fix our issues? We have a lot of stuff going on here. And again, this is 18 years in the making of previous boards of education. This is a year and a half of all the updated information we've had. And now we're putting our cards on the table to the entire town saying, here's what we got. So thank you again to the previous boards of education and the administration that helped kind of set this plan. The original plan that was actually, we still have the blueprints in my office, and going back to right before Queen of Peace became available, Roosevelt was the most viable option for North Arlington. It included 11 classrooms for around $9 million, and it was going to expand out into the field and eat up that space. The reason why we had to expand out and not build up is because of the different structure and the supports of the schools. It didn't allow us to do that. So that plan, literally, it was on the table, and this Board of Education, myself, we had to look at it and say, what do? Do we move forward with this Roosevelt project now, which was our best option at the time, or do we see what happens with Queen of Peace? And we took that chance of saying, let's see what happens with Queen of Peace. Because there was no obligation to them to ultimately work a contract out with us, sell to us, even talk to us. We had no obligation. So we took that chance, and ultimately it's transpiring into what's happening tonight. Queen of Peace becomes available July 1, 17. And if you just take a look at the numbers up there briefly, the Roosevelt project would have given us just over 15,000 square feet in additional space for $9 million. Queen of Peace High School gives us 72,000 square feet. It gives us a gymnasium, a field, a parking lot, another cafeteria, 32 classrooms as opposed to those 11, for less money for just the purchase of all that property. So you're looking at $6.4 million, which also we have a 26% discount over the fair market value from working with the Archdiocese throughout negotiations. So from a standpoint of where we're at in getting that property and being able to have a chance to vote on it tonight, it's a huge success in negotiations. There's going to be 3 phases here that we're going to talk about tonight. Phase 1 is the purchase of Queen of Peace. And again, that is the main reason why we're here tonight. That is ultimately what's being recommended to the Board of Education. This is what the Board of Education has been in negotiations with the Archdiocese for the last year and a half plus. And this is the main reason why we're here tonight, to gain that additional space. So what we did, going back to October, for our long-range facility plan, we had to put in an addendum to the existing plan of the state to say that we were considering purchasing this property. What do you think? Ultimately, they approved it in October. That was the first good step. Then we went to the land acquisition application, and that was ultimately approved in December 5th of 2018. The final stage we're waiting on is the final through the application process. We actually got word today, the approval letter is going to be going out on March 1st for the outright purchase of the property based on the plans that we have in place. So, immediate impact. If we purchase Queen of Peace today, what do we get automatically? What comes back immediately to the town of North Arlington? North Arlington High School, here, we are going to gain 1 to 2 more classes automatically by being able to move child safety offices out and ultimately gain that space. Queen of Peace High School would become the new middle school, and we would move grades 5, all grade 5, over to that middle school, and the 6, 7, and 8 currently at the existing middle school, or Wilson, for those of you that have been in town, those students will move over to the QP building. So QP, for all intent purposes, will be the new 5 to 8 middle school. And the reason for the 5th grade moving over is really twofold. One, how can we create space in the existing elementary schools if we don't have the classrooms available? So by taking those 5th grade sections out, that now frees up space in those buildings. The other piece that we have seen time and time again is that our 5th graders struggle a little bit academically, but more so socially when they transition from that 5th grade to the 6th grade. Maybe it's the prestige of going into a larger building, but we think it's more so of now having 6 or 7 teachers as opposed to one teacher really holding their hand throughout that whole year and their education career. All they know is that one teacher. So by doing this, we're now able to departmentalize to some extent some of those subject areas in that 5th grade, ultimately having them familiar with the building, so that way they can transition into the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade portion of that building without fail. Jefferson, K-4, it would become a K-4, and the reason why we have an asterisk there right now in regards to specialized pre-K is because it's still too early to identify where we're going to put these programs. We need to restructure and look at how many sections in each building we're going to have. And right now, on just kind of tentative early stages, we're looking at Jefferson as being the fit for that program. Now, what that would entail is adding the little potties for the pre-K kindergarten kids over there, which we could do. But again, it's still early in the stages. Roosevelt, one of the things that, as we met over the last 2-3 weeks with several stakeholders in the town, that I stated, along with the Board of Ed, is that we were looking at making Roosevelt a specific early childhood center school, where it would be pre-K all the way through. And one of the things that we realized as we were going through, we hadn't submitted an initial plan for the land acquisition, and the piece, we put that on there. That's there. But as we continue to work with the county, we realized that if we were to restructure that, it's only considered a temporary fix. We would not be able to expect a waiver year after year after year to have that facility done correctly. So what we did, we went back and we looked and we said, all right, well, now we can sprinkle in the pre-K potties, if you will, to these different schools if pre-K is voted on as one of the final phases. So that's why right now it's kind of tentative, but again, forget about the pre-K question. It's tonight, with the purchase of QP, what happens? Roosevelt is a K-4 school, tonight's purchase. Washington, K-4, the former middle school becomes a K-4 building, and ultimately we would look to have a school name committee formed by ultimately parent representatives, stakeholders in the town from different local organizations, And one of the things we were tossing around, we know that there's nostalgia in regards to the Woodrow Wilson name, but at the same token, we also have veterans. We have heroes here in town, first responder heroes, that ultimately, if the committee comes together and says, hey, we want to recognize this person or group of people for a memorial veteran type school, we are open to that and we embrace that. We want to be able to put the community's name on this school forever. And that's something that we could do with the purchase of QP tonight. And on the bottom there, we have the SAC update. We received questions over the last 2 weeks. Well, what's going to happen in SAC, 5th grade moving over here, what if pre-K, this and that. So ultimately, in working with the SAC and the Education Foundation organization, they are absolutely willing and will be having a SAC program at the new middle school, at QP, for our 5th grade students, as well as opening it up to any 6th grade students that want to participate. Now, we actually did a survey last year, and for those parents that were involved with that 6th grade process, you know what I'm talking about. We tried to expand last year to 6th grade, and ultimately we had a small following of kids and families, and it turned out we didn't have enough to get it going. But in this case, our hope is that the 5th grade students, with that need for SAC, there might be a few more 6th graders coming in, which will help the parents out and ultimately the kids to stay in a safe place. In regards to the morning, even with the new school, we can still have morning SAC in each of the buildings prior to the day. And the one thing that we're still trying to work out, the logistics, is trying to get all of those elementary kids over to the new middle school for the end of the day, so that way SAC is centralized and using that space for the after-school hours all in one place. And again, with the purchase of QP just tonight, with the expansion of space, we are also going to have 15 new classrooms, 15 classrooms available to us. So we talked earlier about ELL having no space, BSI having no space, Resource having no space, World Language having no space, OTPT having no space. Worst case scenario, board votes yes tonight on QP High School, those people, those kids, now have space with our existing staff. And that is a huge success in itself right there. It's fully funded through capital projects, which we're going to talk about. This purchase tonight will have zero impact on regards to the purchase of the property, will have zero impact on taxes. Taxes will not go up based on this purchase alone. And people have asked over the last few days and weeks, well, how does that happen? As I mentioned, over the past 18 years, the previous boards of education had the foresight to say, we have an issue here in town. Let's create a capital reserve account, which all districts have. We did it. And over the 18 years, money has fallen at the end of the year, and rather than putting it towards a temporary fix, like knocking the wall down, maybe expanding a classroom here, a classroom there, that is not going to catch up with that growing enrollment, it's ultimately transformed into what we have here tonight with an opportunity which would have been to purchase Roosevelt, and now we have that greater opportunity that really fell into our laps with the purchase of Queen of Peace High School. Continued immediate impact on the purchase of QP High School tonight. Neighborhood schools. I'm sure there's parents in this audience right now who have reached out to the building principals to say, hey, I moved right across the street from Jefferson. Why am I going to Roosevelt? Hey, I moved right across the street from Roosevelt. Why am I going to Washington? It's because we don't have neighborhood lines set, because we don't have the space to set it. And each year, one of the most difficult times that our elementary principals go through is the kindergarten registration. We don't know how many kids are moving in the vicinity of one of the schools. And we know they do a great job of trying to make all accommodations, but even at that, we still have some families that don't get placed in where they want. And then that transition of the kids going from kindergarten to first grade and back, it's not ideal. At that young age, the kids are established, they want to feel comfortable, and they want to make friends, they want to stay with their friends. This will allow us to do it. Another gymnasium for rec. We met with recreation and the presidents, and giving the idea of another brand new gym that we would ultimately have resurfaced, it leads to so many more opportunities for this town, not only for kids, but also for adult programming. So that's a huge success for us. Another field for recreation. And working with our football coach already, and in talks with recreation, just the idea of having that other space for football, soccer, softball, what have you, it's there. We have it. We could use it. Space to create year-round batting cages. For those of you who know me, I'm a big baseball guy. But the same token, we have an up-and-coming baseball program, and our softball girls, they need a place to get year-round. We would now have that place to put our students year-round batting cages, rather than going out of town to cages or swinging on tees in the backyard in the cold. We have a safe place for them to be, and we would have that all together. And the last piece as well is acquiring a wrestling and cheer room. And for those of you that have never seen this part of Queen Peace High School, it looks like a professional college wrestling area, or mat. It has a nice mat all the way across. For the cheer practices, they can't do any flips, although it is matted because the ceiling is a little bit low. But for walkthroughs and different routines, it's now available to them as well. I said to the board, it's going to be 20 minutes. What am I at? 35 right now? So, getting there. Sorry, guys. All right, phase 2. So everything that we got, we presented in regards to the first Queen Peace High School tonight. Now, here's where phase 2 comes in, and this is where we're putting our issues on the table. We're letting you know here's exactly what our problems are. We need your help to fix it. Ultimately, to reduce the existing K-12 population class sizes, with those numbers that we went into earlier, and the growing enrollment, we would be looking to go to one question in November 2019, which would bring on the additional staff to ultimately reduce those class sizes now that we have the space available. That would cost the taxpayer approximately $35 to $40 a month. The reason why we say approximately is because this is still so early in the stages. If anybody has ever been in a town that's gone through a referendum or has talked to friends, family, and other towns or friends, they typically don't put this information out until about 2 or 3 months prior. We're putting it out months in advance because we don't want anybody to feel misled that, oh, the board, they decided to purchase QP, but they didn't tell us about this. No, we're telling you. But ultimately, none of this is going to happen unless the town is behind it. Question 2, security personnel in all schools. That would cost us approximately $8 a month. And what that would allow us to do is place a security guard in each building. And ultimately, we would also have security guards at the events, whether it be recreation at night or different high school-based events or middle school events, elementary events. And right now, Chief Edinburgh and I, we spoke in depth over the last few months about armed versus unarmed. We spoke again today. We spoke to the board about this. We're leaning towards armed officers with steel 3s in the buildings, but keep in mind, that costs a little bit more. So that's actually, we have that built into that $8 count. So that $8 count would allow us to taxpayer approximately $14 a month. So that's phase 2 coming out in November 19, assuming Queen Peace High School is purchased this evening. Phase 2.1, like I mentioned, in regards to the immediate impact on the schools. I'm sorry I should have flipped the slides earlier, but you're looking at some of the decrease in the average class size. And what we did was, if you follow across from the kindergarten on the left-hand column of 138 over to 2nd grade, the reason why we did that is the 2020-21 year we were projected to ultimately open up the new middle school. Again, it was voted on successfully tonight. And you can see by just add, but for that group, it remains the same because we don't need to add another section to that class. However, for the 118, which has only 5 sections, we added to 6, it now drops down to a much more manageable 20 students, and so on. Now, with that being said, are those going to be the numbers that are going to be there in 2021? Absolutely not. They're going to probably be higher. So we can't project out too far, and we don't want to put false numbers. We're using actual numbers now to present to you. And again, the previous, the 26 sections of the 30-plus students and the 33 sections of 25 to 29, in working with Ms. Russo and Ms. Afonso, we believe that the 30-plus classes will completely be gone at middle school, and we still will have a few 25, 26 class sizes at the middle school, but to completely wipe out those 30-plus classrooms, it's a home run. For having those kids at that age not cramped with 30 other plus kids in the classrooms, it's going to be a very nice thing for the middle school. Security guards we spoke about, and also we spoke about the K. the one thing, we spoke about the locations with TBD, how that kind of changed over the last few weeks, but also took the SAC update. The one thing, again, it's still too early in the stages, is if pre-K, if 4 gets voted on successfully in November 2019, what we would do is work with the Education Foundation and SAC, and they are willing to offer the pre-K-4 services for morning and aftercare. Now, for that population, we would have them housed in their schools, most likely it's early, as opposed to having them moved over to the middle school, so that way we have the kids in an environment that they feel comfortable with. Now, in regards to the morning, many pre-K programs start a little bit later than a typical school day. So SAC, again, worked with us to make sure that those kids are under their care up until the school day actually starts. Phase 3. Phase 3 is a December 2019 referendum question. And ultimately, what it would equate to is about $10 million, and it would cost the taxpayer approximately $9 a month over that school year. Now, one of the things at the middle school right now at QP, the boilers, from what we understand, are original to the building. They're functional, they're working. But again, proactively, if we put our students in there, and God forbid those boilers go, now we have an issue. So proactively, we're trying to make sure that those are upgraded properly, so that way our students are warm in those winter months, and obviously being UV coated. The roof as well, it works, but just the other day we did a walkthrough, and since our previous walkthrough, an area of the roof ultimately had a leak, so part of it was repaired. So the roof is giving a little bit here and there, and we're looking to have it replaced proactively, so that way we're not using other funds to patch the job. We'd rather get it done the right way and have it ready for our kids. Furniture upgrades at the new middle school as well for our students to get them desks that are conducive to the one-to-one environment. Another piece, I'm going to go off this a little bit. As many of you probably know, this year we did our first one-to-one pilot for our 7th grade in the middle school with Chromebooks, thanks to the Education Foundation's donation, and also to the support of Board Ed and the administration's hard work in getting all the logistics down. Next year, we look to expand out to grade 6 to 8. By the year 2021, we want to have all of our 5th grade through 8th grade students with the one-to-one devices. So that way, when you walk into the middle school, regardless of who you are, you have that program. You're now doing the one-to-one, and that's going to require the upgraded furniture in order to do it correctly. Aesthetic upgrades for the new middle school, QP. If you've been in there, some of the hallway tiles are a little dingy. The gymnasium tiles as well could use some replacement. Some of the tiling is a little chipped. So from the standpoint of taking pride and having our children take pride in the brand new school they walk into, we want to be able to get it up to that nice kind of feel for when they walk into the building, as well as when the parents go in. Man traps. So what a man trap is in the security world is pretty much what Washington has. If you're familiar with Washington School, or if you're familiar with North Arlington Middle School, you walk into that first set of doors, and now you're trapped in that vestibule. And what this will allow us to do, this referendum, is ultimately upgrade those existing man traps, so that way we can have visitors come in, require scanning their license, hopefully a security guard, and ultimately if things don't check out, they are trapped in that area in case their detentions are not well. So that's something that we're looking to do. And if the schools that don't have it, we simply put them in. HVAC units in Roosevelt and Washington School gymnasiums. For anybody that's been in that gymnasium, for those gymnasiums in springtime or early fall, it is hot. And here we are as adults going in there, and we're waving and kind of looking and saying, oh, where's your check? And you come talking, I want to get out of here. The kids, I can't even imagine being in there at age 5, 6, 7, trying to play in that environment. So by adding the HVAC units, we now have fully air-conditioned HVAC units for those buildings. And then finally, this is a big one, we want to give Jefferson a gymnasium. They've been without a gym for way too long, and every time I go into that building and see 30 kids cramped in what isn't even a cafeteria, I don't know what it is to tell you the truth. It breaks my heart to see the kids in that spot. And for the people who have been here in town, that have graduated from Jefferson, you know as well as I, that school's in desperate need of a gym. And again, the other people. Community feedback sessions. So one of the things I mentioned early on is we're presenting this information early, maybe too early. And I say that respectfully because we're going to get a bunch of questions tonight that we might not have all the answers to. But what we are going to do is establish a series of community-based meetings over the next few months where I'll be present along with these two board members, and we're going to listen to the community as what can we do, what can you do to help your kids, the school, what are you looking for, what are we able to do to present and prepare for that final referendum. We're going to work on that in the coming weeks and months. Miscellaneous topics. One of the things that will allow us to open up, if we purchase QP tonight and ultimately start to bring back our special education population, is grab a new track for revenue streams coming into North Arlington. And what I mean by that is this. If we have one teacher and say two of our children, say in an ABA program for autistic children at the early ages, and we have that program going for a year or so. Now all of a sudden another district that doesn't have that program available, they call us and say, hey, by the way, you're going to get a program going. What's the tuition? Maybe $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. We'd have to establish that number. But now we open our doors to that family, that child coming in at a tuition rate here in our district. And that is a revenue stream that hopefully is going to help offset taxes, which we hope over the next few years down the line. The other piece that allows the potential revenue stream is if we have an additional class or two or three available. The jointure is always looking for space. So again, if they call us and say, hey, you need space, you have a classroom available? Yeah, sure we do. It's going to cost you $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, whatever you use it. They are going to jump on that and ultimately take that opportunity. So it does allow for more revenue streams to come in. And as I say that, it's not going to prohibit our kids being taken care of first. I don't want that misconception out there that, oh, well, they opened up the doors here, we're not going to get a push, but no. Our kids here are getting taken care of first. I want to stress that, and I want to make that known. So that way, there's no rumors, I don't get calls tomorrow on anything crazy. Our kids are taken care of first. The Career Technical Ed Program, CTE, better known as CTE. This is years down the line. But this is to show you, the board, the administration, we are not just looking at getting this thing done and putting our feet up and relaxing. We have other ideas. So ultimately, if we get this middle school ready, we're looking to open a CTE program years down the line. Plumbing, carpentry, electricians, welding, all of these trades, we don't have. And for those of you that go back, it was live, it was all around the mid-'80s, early 80s, and then all of a sudden the push came to everybody has to go to college. If you're not going to college, it's no good. Well, you know what? That's not the case. Because there are people out there coming right out of high school, getting into trade, making $100,000 plus, and we have not been able to offer that opportunity to our kids. So with the extra space at the middle school, down the line, we hope to open that program up to give our kids more opportunities. And finally, air conditioning. I just threw this in at the end. We've got a few inquiries about AC at the middle school and high school. So over the last, keep in mind, we never had air conditioning in any of the classrooms here in North Arlington ever. 2 years ago, with the help of PTO, again, the Education Foundation, we were able to, and the support of the Board of Education for electrical upgrades, we were able to get our elementary schools fully outsourced with the AC units. Now, as soon as that was done, we said, it's the next step. We got to get middle school and high school going. So for the last year and a half plus, we've been working on that. And if you remember, earlier in the year in September, we actually had to do an early dismissal for our secondary level kids. It was like 95, 96 degrees. It wasn't the right environment for our kids to be in. But we were able to hold our elementary students here in district because of the AC units. So we are working on it, and we anticipate having these AC units done for either this spring or the latest early fall. So we're working on it. We're going to get it in. It's just the procedure that we're working on. All right? So we are working on that. We are going to open up the comments to the public. The one thing that we're going to really follow through tonight in regards to this speaking is you have 5 minutes to speak. We're not going to get in a back and forth dialogue with you, because ultimately that's going to potentially take up a half an hour, 40 minutes, or ultimately if we're talking and responding to one question, that's going to eat up your 5 minutes, and we don't want that to happen. So we will listen at the end of your questions with response. The Board of Education, myself, our VA, our assistant VA, possibly our attorney, will be able to offer clarification on any items that you need. And also, if we're not able to answer it, we'll get back to you. It's as simple as that. Like I said, we're presenting a lot of information very early here tonight, and maybe too early, so we're not going to have the answers to everything, but we do want your feedback. We want your input over the next few weeks and months, hopefully, and also, too, we're putting out the issues that we have, and ultimately looking for support of what we have presented. And if the town's behind it, great, and if not, that's okay, too. But we think so, the board thinks so, but it's really what the town